Sira pressed her palm against Kalen's bleeding side, watching as a single drop of his crimson blood vanished into her lavender skin, igniting a golden glow in both their eyes. The human's breath hitched, a jagged sound that cut through the humming silence of the Ethelgard flora. Around them, the bioluminescent ferns pulsed with a sudden, violent intensity, mirroring the heat blooming between her skin and his. Have you ever wondered if a single moment of mercy could rewrite the laws of biology? Stick around, because this connection is about to change everything for two warring worlds. Now, let's see where this blood bond began. 6 hours earlier, the only sound in the Forbidden Basin had been the rhythmic clicking of Kalen's overheating ion carbine. He was the last one. Sira had watched from the canopy as the Solus Hegemony team fell one by one, victims of their own arrogance and the lethal beauty of her home. But this one was different. Kalen Voss didn't run like a soldier. He moved like a man who respected the shadows he moved through. He stopped frequently to adjust a localized scanner, his fingers trembling slightly against the matte black casing of his weapon. The ion carbine was a blunt instrument of destruction, a slab of cold metal that stood in stark defiance of the soft, glowing vines draping the trees. To Sira, it was a scar on the landscape. She followed him for miles, fascinated by the way he paused to touch a weeping willow leaf, his expression one of tragic wonder rather than greed. Most invaders simply took. He seemed to be mourning. The transition from observer to executioner should have been simple. It was what her lineage demanded. Sira shifted her weight, her feline grace disturbing not a single petal, and prepared to end the hegemony's presence in the basin for good. But she hesitated. Kalen had sat down by a crystalline spring, laying the ion carbine across his knees. He wasn't looking for threats anymore. He pulled a small, dented metal flask from his vest and took a slow drink, his eyes fixed on the triple moons rising over the spire pillars in the distance. Is it possible to see the soul of an enemy before you see their face? The peace of the moment shattered when Sira descended. She was a blur of lavender and silver, her ritual blade humming with kinetic energy. Kalen reacted with the instinct of a man who had spent his life expecting the worst. He swung the ion carbine up, not to fire, but to parry. The clang of metal on energy edge rang out, a discordant note that sent a flock of glass-winged birds screaming into the night. They danced a brutal, narrow dance between the glowing trunks. Kalen was heavy, grounded, and efficient. Sira was air and lightning. Every time he tried to level the carbine, she was already inside his guard, her blade whistling past his throat. He was breathing hard now, the sound of his exertion loud and wet in the humid air. He tripped over a protruding root, the ion carbine skittering across the mossy floor, out of reach. Sira didn't hesitate. She lunged, her blade finding the gap in his tactical plating. The blade bit deep into Kalen's side. He didn't scream. Instead, he grabbed Sira's wrist with a strength that surprised her, his blood slicking her skin as he forced her to look him in the eye. That was the moment of the change. The moment she saw not a monster, but a mirror. And now, in the shadow of the ferns, the ritual was complete. The golden glow didn't fade. It traveled up Sira's arm, mapping her veins in light that matched the fire in Kalen's chest. He looked down at his wound, watching as the torn flesh knitted together under the influence of her Ethel touch. The pain was gone, replaced by a hum that resonated in the very marrow of his bones. He reached for the ion carbine, but his fingers didn't close around the trigger. He simply touched the metal. Under the influence of their combined energy, the weapon didn't hum with the harsh, killing static of the hegemony. It pulsed with a steady, rhythmic light. Sira felt his confusion, a wave of alien thoughts crashing against her own. He was wondering if he was still human. She was wondering if she was still Ethel. They didn't have long to process the shift. The forest floor vibrated with the heavy, rhythmic thuds of war-bred predators. The authorities had felt the ripple of the bond. They were coming to prune the anomaly. Sira stood, offering a hand to the man she had tried to kill minutes ago. Kalen took it, and for a second, the archive of Loria whispered to them from across the continent, a beacon calling them home. This was more than a biological quirk. It was a functional unit of two species becoming one. In Aethelgard's history, this symbiosis was a myth, a lost bridge designed to end the very war Kaelin's people had started. "They won't stop," Kaelin said, his voice sounding like two voices layered together. Sira nodded. She could see the heat signatures of the predators through the trees, but she could also see the flow of the planet's energy. She saw how Kaelin fit into it now. He wasn't an invader anymore. He was a vital part of the circuit. They moved together, a blur of lavender and tactical gray. When the first predator lunged, Kaelin didn't fire the ion carbine. He held it aloft, and Sira pressed her hand to the cooling shroud. A wave of pure, non-lethal force erupted, a golden shock wave that sent the beasts tumbling back into the dark. The ion carbine, once a tool of cold violence, had become the focus for a power neither could wield alone. By the time they reached the spire pillar, the world felt different. Smaller, more connected. They stood at the edge of the archive's sanctuary, looking back at the fires of the search parties. Kaelin looked at the weapon in his hand, then at the glowing veins in his palm. He looked at Sira, and for the first time the distance between Earth and Aethelgard didn't seem so vast. A single drop of intent had started it. A lifetime of choice would have to maintain it. Kaelin set the ion carbine down on the ancient stone of the pillar. It no longer looked like a weapon, but like a relic of a war that had finally found its end. If you could share the heartbeat of your enemy, would you still be able to call them a foe? This bond changed the fate of two worlds, and maybe it's time we look for those connections in our own lives. We'll be here tomorrow with another chronicle from the stars.